waiting on the next round of coronavirus stimulus. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell unveiling the Republicans' $1 trillion proposal yesterday. It's called the HEALS Act. It would cut the $600 a week unemployment expansion, which officially expires at the end of this month, to now $200 a week through September. That's when a 70% wage replacement goes into effect. 50% from the states, 20% from federal government. The bill will provide stimulus checks to up to $1,200, also provide $105 billion to reopen schools, $16 billion to expand testing capacity, and it will also provide liability protection for businesses. White House officials are negotiating with Democratic leadership to reach a deal ahead of the August recess, which is August 8th. Joining me right now is Georgia Congressman, member of the House Judiciary Committee, Doug Collins. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here. First up on the stimulus, what can you tell us, before I get to Attorney General Bill Barr testifying in front of your committee today, what can you tell us about the stimulus? Are we close? Do you expect that we will see a deal with those elements in it?
I think we'll see a deal, Maria. I'm not sure we're close yet. I think this is probably like a mile race. You got 4 laps around the track. We're probably in our first lap right now. But the Senate's put out a proposal. It's probably going to change as we go forward. But I will say this, and I think it's really important. And you're dealing with business. You're seeing our businesses come back. This unemployment insurance is a really big issue for businesses right now. Very large companies in the state of Georgia and all over are dealing with this unemployment and people not wanting to come back because in many cases, a lot of the folks are being paid more than they were making before the virus struck. So we've got to make sure that that is happening because we've got to open back up business. If we want our economy to grow, business has to have the employees to do it. So we'll see where it's going, and we'll see how much the Democrats actually want to get stuff done.
Well, look, I mean, we are seeing a $3.5 trillion package from Nancy Pelosi. How are you going to come together when the Republicans are just over $1 trillion and she's talking about much bigger numbers?
Well, I think we have to point out for the people what we've already done, and I think one of the things that the Senate plan also did was give more flexibility to state and localities to use the money. We forget many times that all the money that we appropriated back earlier this year has not been spent. A lot of that money is still out there, but it's been restricted by regulations on how they can spend it. We need to make sure that we're taking those restrictions off so states and localities can do what they need to do. But there's a big part of this package that needs to stay, and that is the money's in there for schools and universities to reopen. We've got to get our educational system back opened up along with our economy. So we're a long way apart. I don't think it's going to be easy, and I don't think it's going to be fairly quick, but I think the Democrats have an understanding if they want to help people, they've got to be practical in what they're looking at, too.
All right, let me move on to the big testimony facing your committee today. Attorney General Bill Barr heading to the Hill to testify before the House Judiciary Committee. Barr's prepared opening statement includes fiery comments on the protests and the Russia probe. I spoke with Barr last month about U.S. Attorney John Durham's investigation. Take a listen. We're waiting on John Durham's investigation, a criminal investigation. What bearing does the election have on that? In other words, if he comes out with his conclusions in December and has charges against people, will anything happen? I haven't heard any Democrats raise any upset over the fact that wiretapping of an American citizen was illegal.
It's been stunning that all we've gotten from the mainstream media is sort of bovine silence in the face of the complete collapse of the so-called Russiagate scandal, which they did all they could to sensationalize and drive. And it's like not even a whoops, they just on to the next false scandal. So that has been surprising to me, that people aren't concerned about civil liberties and in the integrity of our governmental process. In terms of the future of Durham's investigation, he's pressing ahead as hard as he can, and I expect that, we will have some developments, hopefully before the end of the summer.
Congressman, what about that? What are you expecting to hear from Barr this morning?
I'm expecting to hear Bill Barr be the Bill Barr we've seen on Capitol Hill before, and I think it's really interesting for me. Chairman Nadler has this weirdly personal thing, it seems, about Bill Barr. Every time there's something happens in the world, Jerry Nadler tries to blame Bill Barr. But the thing about Bill Barr is he simply does his job. He comes to work, he does his job. There's areas that we'll always agree that we'd like to see faster or slower, but the one thing he has done is what you and I have talked about for many months and years now, and that is getting to the bottom of what happened when they were spying on Americans, spying on a presidential candidate, and then then actually trying to take that advantage into the White House itself. So the Durham investigation, I, for everything that is within me, hope that we start seeing something before the end of this summer, because the people need to know that their Department of Justice is being held accountable just like everybody else is. So this morning, I expect a fiery Bill Barr. I expect him not to take anything from either side. I think he's going to answer honestly, and I think that's what we're going to get. But the Democrats have been trying to get Bill Barr up here. They finally worked it out, and now I think they're going to see what they're going to get, and they're going to hear the truth from Bill Barr.
Well, we also saw the declassified documents last week, which showed that the FBI knew that the dossier was fake and garbage and hearsay at Barr. And the FBI went ahead with getting renewals to continue to spy on the Trump campaign and while he was sitting president. Here's Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham, who said more is coming on this. He told me this Sunday. What about the FBI and what it told Congress? Is lying to Congress a 10-year felony, as Trey Gowdy has said on this program?
I will tell you next week what I found, and here's what I think I'm going to be able to show to the public. Not only did the FBI lie to the court about the reliability of the Steele dossier, they also lied to the Congress, and that's a separate crime.
So what about that, Congressman? What are we going to hear on that front? And are we going to get more information this week that shows a second crime committed, first lying to the FISA court, then lying to Congress?
Well, I hope so, and I hope Chairman Graham continues in pressing forward to getting these folks to come before his committee. Look, Maria, we've known that they've lied in the FISA court. You and I have talked about this, and we released transcripts last year, with the first to do so we could begin to see that Comey and Strzok and McCabe, they knew what they were doing. This was not a, oops, we didn't mean to do it thing. This was from everything, a willful, intentional job to mislead this court, and we've seen that come out in the last little bit in what the documents have been provided. Even Peter Strzok questioned the reliability of Steele to make an assessment about the subsources in this report. So we know that it was a hit job. We know that it was something that needed to be addressed. And I'm so glad that John Ratcliffe is beginning to declassify these documents so we can see that they were targeting the candidate Trump at that point, and it led on into the presidency as well. We've got to continue to hold these people accountable. If they don't, I don't know how Strzok and McCabe and Comey in particular, and anybody who signed off on those reports before the FISA court can actually stand in front of a camera and continue to be honest with the American people that they did nothing wrong. That is just not true. That's a lie.
Real quick, Congressman, you've got the technology CEOs coming in this week as well. What do you want to hear from the CEOs of Apple, Google, Twitter, et cetera, Facebook?
Two things. I want them to understand that they cannot continue to steal content from newspapers and others all across the country and not get paid fair content prices for that. That's why we introduced a bill to do that. And number two, they got to recognize Section 230 has got to be gone. They can no longer hide behind safe harbor simply being a bulletin board when they're actually editing and putting out news that many people take for real. They've got to have Section 230 removed, and they've got to understand why.
All right, you say they're content creators, not a bulletin board, not a platform any longer.
They're not. These are not folks in the back of a basement, starting up a business here. These are folks that actually can move the thought of the world. They now decide what goes on their platform, how it goes on their platform, how it's listed, how it's not listed. How does that not an editor of a paper who is liable for their content on how they actually have to produce something? They've got to understand they're no longer simply part of the, the masses. They are the mass.
Right. All right. You got a busy week in the Judiciary Committee this week, Congressman. We'll be watching the developments. Thank you so much, Congressman Doug Collins there. Stay with us.